Now, with that connection being stated between the relationship between mothers and child, and to some degrees fathers and child, although since mothers are the ones giving birth, the biological things there are a bit stronger. For a second, let's look at another drive, and arguably a stronger one. In our present day, a lot of people would hear me say that, a drive stronger than sex. But really, to anyone that's actually been starved, it's not hard to see. And really, nobody in the Western world, virtually no one in the Western world has really genuinely experienced true hunger pangs. If we go for a day without food, we think the world will end. There's almost nobody among the primary YouTube audience that really understand. There are some, in other nations that probably understand it better than a lot of those who are just immersed in the Western world, but they just don't understand the realities of what starvation consists of, because they've really never come close to it. So let's look a bit at your statement there that sex isn't all about having babies. And this is something I hope we all agree on. While the act of having babies is an important aspect to it, it's not what it's all about. And likewise with consumption, when we're eating things and drinking things and even breathing, because breathing's tied to the burning of the energy, is not all about providing the body with nutrients, hydration, and fuel, and energy output. At least, not on the immediate level. Hunger and thirst and an affinity for breathing, all these things, and they move humans beyond merely wanting to obtain a meal or a drink or something to inhale, but they move us to affect the means of providing for as long as possible and the highest concentrations as possible these needs, providing for these needs. It fosters, concept of hoarding to build reserves. It inspires both assertive obtainment, equally or more affirmative preservation of that which we obtain. And it's often been said that one of the worst ways to die is to die by starvation or dehydration. And if you look at it, you look at history, there have been so many cases where parents have been brought to cannibalism of their own young because of the pangs, the hunger pangs associated with starvation. And if any of you have read Viktor Frankl's 1946 book, Man's Search for Meaning, and if you haven't, I would highly recommend it. It's a great book. BigEvasive, if you don't have it and you want it, I'd buy it and send it to you. Really, honestly, if you'd be willing to read that. He was a psychologist that survived the Holocaust and concentration camps, and he recalls he spoke about how the men there and talking about the memories of food, and at one point, if I'm remembering correctly, he likens the practice of these men fantasizing about food to the normal kind of mantra surrounding when many men, not all men, but when men get involved in talk of things pornographic. And there was a very similar tie between the way these men in concentration camps were talking and about, thinking about food, these things that they used to have. It was interesting too, because Viktor Frankl didn't think it was healthy for them to do that. But anyway, we're going to look at then again the idea of hunger compared with libido, and can you direct those things in another direction? Can you direct hunger? Can you direct libido? And the answer is certainly can. With sex, for example, there's various fetishes. The whole concept of a fetish is redirecting normal biological ties that are supposed to, again, the whole thing, when I say supposed to, is with relation to propagation, but there's pornographic material, for example. This is one redirection of libido, of the forces of libido. Now with food, can you do that? Certainly. We can bypass the digestive tract altogether. You can certain veins, but as far as dealing with the impulsive eating, I mean, we've got terms of anorexia and bulimia. You've got individuals that manage to survive these, and some of them seem to do just fine. You've got a whole base of models and supermodels in our world that it's kind of their life. I mean, they go through their whole life, and you even get some wrestlers and on the men's side, or as far as directing hunger or dismissing hunger, you sometimes get some avid video gamers that can either put off eating or expelling, or anyway, I won't get into that. Some pretty interesting things, but this gets to the issue of not whether or not something can survive of itself, because there are a lot of things that can survive, but whether it can survive and pass itself on. And this idea of being able to perpetuate yourself, not merely survive and live as an individual being, but being able and capable and actually affecting a reproduction. And if you look at, for example, a lot of aspects of Greco-Roman or even Babylonian elements that have survived into our culture, if you take many of these things, a lot of them have been divorced from their original state, and at times they're even in completely different meanings for us than they were back then. And a lot of this is born out of the fact that a lot of these civilizations, we received these remnants from them as something that was just as sterile as something that was written down, and so we don't have the full context, and so it was kind of like the dead remnants of a cell. It wasn't so much that the genetics were being passed on, it was just that the proteins were being cannibalized. And I guess if you wanted to view that as being a posterity, whatever eats you is your posterity, then. But anyway, moving on. Back to this connection of relationship to mother, to child, and its tie to essentially all other human connections.